Bloody laundry. This story happened to me, Nikki, and my family. It was a trip that, to this day, I can never forget. Instead of happening on a recent holiday, my family's fateful trip took place over the 4th of July weekend, more than a decade ago. My family is the type that believes the more, the merrier. So for that trip, there were 12 of us in total. There's a unique tradition when it comes to vacations in the American South. We're not big on staying in separate rooms and eating out at fancy restaurants. Every time we travel, we pack coolers to the brim with sandwiches, hot dogs, sodas, snacks. We even bring a portable grill for our own BBQs. Our trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina was no exception. We rented a 16-passenger van. 12 of us filled the seats, and the 4 empty ones were piled high with our food and supplies. We didn't book a room in advance. Back then, online booking apps weren't as common as they are today. The holiday traffic on the highway was a nightmare. We left early in the morning, but it wasn't until 3 p.m. that we finally arrived. As soon as we got there, we only had about 15 minutes to even look at the ocean before we had to rush off to find a place to stay. We spent another hour driving up and down the main strip, but every hotel and motel was fully booked. Finally, we found a motel. It was a rather old 5-story building located in a quieter area, set back from the main drag. The owner told us he had 1 room left on the 5th floor, a family suite with 6 beds, perfect for 12 people. Our family was thrilled. We all wanted to stay together. But there were 2 major problems. First, the motel had no elevator. Second, the price for the holiday weekend was astronomical. Initially, my family refused and tried to find another place. But after another 45 minutes of fruitless searching, we had no choice but to return to that motel. I don't know if it was just bad luck or if some dark force was leading us back, but we returned to the one place we shouldn't have. The owner now seemed smug. "I told you," he said, "you won't find another room on a holiday weekend without a reservation." In the end, we accepted the outrageous price and took the room. It was almost 5 p.m. by then. Our entire family of 12, exhausted and irritable, dragged ourselves up 5 flights of stairs. The room was indeed spacious with 6 beds neatly arranged, but it had its own peculiarities. First, the bathroom. For a room meant for 12 people, there was only 1 tiny toilet. And even stranger, directly on the wall opposite the bathroom door was a massive full-length mirror. This meant that every time you stepped out of the bathroom and looked up, you'd be startled by the sight of another person standing right in front of you, your own reflection. The first incident happened with my aunt. She's very meticulous and a bit of a clean freak. She was the first to use the bathroom and came out immediately with a disgusted look on her face. "This room must have just been vacated," she complained. "I went in to use the toilet, and on the floor was a disgusting old scrub brush, the kind you use on floors with a huge clump of tangled hair on it. It was so gross I had to throw it into the cabinet under the sink before I could even go." We all just chalked it up to sloppy housekeeping due to the holiday rush. But the mirror continued to be a nuisance. Several family members got a jump scare coming out of the bathroom. That evening, we all went out to the boardwalk for dinner and a few celebratory drinks. Around 9 p.m. we headed back. As we trudged up the 5 flights of stairs, exhausted, We were horrified to see water seeping out from under our room door and into the hallway. Oh my God, who left the faucet on in the bathroom? We burst into the room in a panic. Water from the bathroom was flooding the floor. When we flipped on the lights, we discovered something even more terrifying. It was my aunt, the one who had thrown away the brush, who screamed, "Why is that brush back here?" The hairy scrub brush from earlier was now sitting directly under the sink's faucet, which was on full blast. Next to it was a pile of clothes. They were the clean outfits we had set out to wear the next day. The entire pile was soaked, sitting next to the filthy brush, looking exactly as if someone had been in the middle of scrubbing laundry and had been interrupted. All eyes immediately turned to my two little cousins, the resident troublemakers of the family. "Was this you too? Who told you to wash everyone's clothes?" Despite being mischievous, they both burst into tears, insisting they didn't do it. That's when I spoke up for them. I remembered clearly that before we all left the room, I was the one watching them. They were only playing near the beds and never went into the bathroom. Hearing this, another aunt in the family shivered and said, "If it wasn't them, then was it a ghost?" The room fell silent. The festive mood of our vacation vanished, replaced by a chilling, unspoken fear. That night, because I'd had a little beer, I couldn't fall asleep. I tossed and turned until almost 1 a.m., while everyone else in the room, even the two little ones, were fast asleep. My bed was right next to the bathroom wall. I was just drifting off when I heard a distinct scrape, scrape, scrape sound coming from the toilet. That, along with the sound of running water, sounded exactly like someone was using a scrub brush on a pair of jeans. The sound was relentless. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then 15 minutes passed. Annoyed at the disturbance, I sat up. And that's when I looked into the mirror across from me. The mirror reflected the inside of the dark bathroom, where the door had been left ajar by my uncle earlier that night. In the reflection, I could clearly see the silhouette of a woman squatting in the floor, her back to me, scrubbing something furiously. I thought it was one of my aunts. I got out of bed, intending to ask her to go to sleep. Standing right at the bathroom door, I squinted into the darkness and said, "Auntie, what are you doing washing clothes at this hour?" The woman didn't answer. The sound of scrubbing just got faster, more frantic. "Auntie, it's so loud, I can't sleep," I said, a little louder. Still no reply. Annoyed, I reached for the light switch. The light flickered on. But unlike in the ghost stories I'd heard, the woman didn't disappear. She was still there, scrubbing even more furiously now, like a mad woman. It was only under the bright light that I saw her clearly. She was not one of my aunts. She was wearing a uniform, like a motel housekeeper's. And then I saw it. From the back of her head, blood was seeping out, staining the collar of her white polo shirt, a dark, spreading crimson. Horrified, I stammered, "Ma'am, you're bleeding." Before I could finish, she stopped scrubbing. She slowly raised a hand to the back of her head where the blood was coming from. But instead of checking the wound, she squeezed it. Fresh blood gushed out, and with it, clumps of hair and bits of flesh began to fall to the floor, revealing a caved-in section of her skull, as if she had been struck with a blunt object. That's when I knew what I was looking at. I was paralyzed with fear and took a single step back, The moment I moved, the woman shot up to her feet with inhuman speed and began to turn around. Terrified of seeing her face, I spun away, but right behind me was the giant mirror. I squeezed my eyes shut, then opened them, looking into the reflection. And that was the most terrifying sight of my life. In the mirror, the ghost was no longer standing behind me. She was standing right next to me. Her face was a mask of blood, with only two stark white eyes, wide and staring directly into mine. Ah! I let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed to the floor. My scream woke the entire family. They flicked on all the lights and rushed to my side. My mom held me, but I was still hysterical. A ghost. Mom, I just saw a ghost. At first, nobody believed me, thinking I had a nightmare from the beer. But when one of my uncles went to check the bathroom, he came out with a pale face. The scene from earlier had been perfectly recreated. The hairy scrub brush was back under the running faucet, and next to it were the same clean clothes that we had already taken out to dry on the balcony. After that, no one doubted my story. No one slept that night. The 12 of us huddled together on the 4 beds furthest from the bathroom. We left every single light on in the room, including the bathroom light, and turned the TV on for noise until morning. As soon as the sun rose, we packed our things and checked out. We argued with the owner to get our money back, but he only returned a small portion, which only confirmed that he knew about the ghost all along. To this day, I believe that the ghost was the spirit of a housekeeper who had been murdered in that motel. Her soul, unable to rest, is trapped there, forever replaying her final task, doing the laundry. The new branch. My name is Diane, and I'm an HR manager. This all happened a few years ago, back when I was someone who believed in logic, not ghost stories. My company's main office was in downtown Los Angeles. After years of success, the board decided to open a new branch out in the city of industry, an industrial suburb. I, along with a few other key managers, was temporarily transferred there for a few months to get the new office up and running and to train the new staff. Our start date at the new branch was set for right after the New Year's holiday. It all began a few days before Christmas. By then, most of the staff had already started their holiday break. I got a text message from Jenna, a sweet young office assistant who had just graduated from college. Jenna told me that our boss had asked her to go to the new branch to supervise a crew installing glass partitions. The company had already moved some expensive computers and equipment over. The boss didn't want the new office left unattended. She was feeling lonely and a little scared out there by herself, so she asked me to come by for coffee. I was busy preparing for the holidays with my family, so I declined. I had no idea that by saying no, I was leaving her to face a horrifying experience alone. It was only later that Jenna told me what happened. That day, after the installation crew left in the afternoon, Jenna was all alone in the massive empty office. To escape the midday sun, she decided to take a short nap inside one of the newly built glass-walled offices. She was just drifting off when she was startled by a series of soft thuds, like hands slapping against the glass. Jenna opened her eyes and froze. Outside the glass walls, a crowd of about a dozen people was surrounding her. They were a mix of men, women, and even children. all in tattered, dirty clothes, looking like they were homeless. They were all pressing their faces and hands against the glass, their vacant eyes staring right at her. They vanished in a matter of seconds. In shock, Jenna tried to calm herself, thinking she must have been dreaming, maybe influenced by a horror movie review she'd seen earlier. She decided to leave immediately, but when she pressed the button on her remote, the giant rolling steel door at the main entrance didn't budge. She thought the power might have gone out, but the lights in the office were still on, and then she heard groaning. The crowd of homeless figures had appeared again, but this time they were inside the main office with her. They were no longer standing. They were on the floor, crawling slowly and deliberately toward the glass office where she was trapped, their hands outstretched as if they were begging. Jenna was overwhelmed with terror. In her panic, she just squeezed her eyes shut and started praying to God, her thumb still frantically mashing the button on the door remote. And then, a miracle. The rolling door began to creak open. As the bright California sun flooded the warehouse, Jenna opened her eyes. All of the figures were gone. She sprinted to her car and sped away, forgetting to even close the rolling door behind her. After the holidays, we began working at the new branch. On our first day, as we were setting up for the opening day meeting, a series of strange accidents happened. The large conference table in the middle of the room began to shake violently, causing a flower vase to slide off and shatter on the floor. A few minutes later, the entire table flipped over with a deafening crash, scattering everything. Jenna, her face pale, grabbed my arm and whispered, "It's them, Diane. They're the ones who knocked over the table." As a logical person, I dismissed her claim, assuming the table was just unstable. I even thought to myself that maybe she was making up stories to get transferred back to the old office to be closer to her boyfriend. A few days later, Jenna resigned from her job. Not a transfer request, a full resignation sent directly to the board, bypassing me completely. That's when I first started to feel a flicker of doubt. Several weeks later, I was working overtime by myself to finish the monthly payroll. Around 7 p.m., while I was focused on my computer screen, I caught a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision. I saw a group of people walk past my glass-walled office. I assumed it was workers from another department. But a few minutes later, the same group walked past again. And on the third time, I looked closer, and my blood ran cold. There was a small child in the group. I stood up and went to check the main floor, but the entire building was empty and silent. I went back to my desk, and the moment I sat down, the lights in my office went out. The rest of the building remained lit, but my office was plunged into darkness, illuminated only by the distant glow of streetlights. I looked toward the main rolling door at the far end of the warehouse, and I saw them. The entire crowd of ghostly figures, including the 2 children, was standing there in a single line, silently staring at me. As a manager, my first instinct was not fear, but anger. I decided to walk out there and confront them, but as soon as I stepped out of my office, the entire group collapsed to the floor and began crawling toward me, the same awful moaning sound filling the air. At that moment, my composure shattered completely. I ran back into my office, grabbed my phone, and called my husband in a state of pure panic. After he calmed me down, I gathered all my courage, grabbed my purse with one hand, held the phone to my ear with the other, and made a run for my car. I drove a few hundred yards down the street before I remembered I hadn't closed the main rolling door. I couldn't just leave the company wide open. I had to go back. I stopped my car across the street, a safe distance away. With a trembling hand, I took out the remote and pressed the button. The giant steel door began its slow descent, and that's when I saw the final image, the image that will be burned into my memory forever. As the rolling door slowly closed, the ghosts appeared one last time. They materialized in the darkness of the warehouse, standing in a single silent line right behind the closing door. They weren't crawling or moaning anymore. They just stood there, all of their vacant, lifeless eyes fixed on me, like a final farewell, until the steel door slammed shut, hiding them from my sight. After that night, I pulled every string I could to get transferred back to the main office in downtown LA. Later, I heard through the company grapevine that the City of Industry branch had been a disaster. Employee turnover was abnormally high, and the branch was bleeding money. In less than a year, the board of directors had to shut it down. It was only then that I knew with absolute certainty that Jenna had been telling the truth all along. Why the bank fled. This story happened in Scottsdale, Arizona, about 10 years ago. Back then, Scottsdale was booming. Luxury restaurants were popping up, but they were mostly safe, boring steakhouses. So when a high-end Southwestern fusion restaurant was announced, backed by a massive investment, it made noise. The owner was Mrs. Harrison, the wife of some Silicon Valley tech mogul. She was opening it for her daughter, some 20-something, to give her something to do. They leased a gorgeous 3-story glass and steel building in the middle of downtown. The strange part, the building was empty. Before them, there was the office of a major private bank. Think Wells Fargo Private Client. Everyone knows when a bank signs a lease, they stay for decades. But this bank broke their lease and moved out after just 1 year, taking a massive financial penalty. They moved into a smaller, cramped office a few blocks away. Nobody understood why. A bank isn't short on cash, so why would they run? At the time, I was Sam. I was unemployed and needed a job. I saw the ad, bartenders, servers, hosts, janitors. I applied and got hired as a server for a ridiculously high wage. Our team was about 10 people, chefs, a manager, a few young servers like me, and one janitor, Brenda. Brenda was a woman in her 40s, tough, straight-talking. She was the type who'd seen it all and didn't believe in anything she couldn't scrub. She thought the flashy restaurant was ridiculous. Mrs. Harrison, conversely, was extremely spiritual. Not traditional, though. She was California New Age. She believed in energies, crystals, and entities. For the grand opening, she didn't have a priest. She held an energy cleansing. She flew in a shaman from Sedona. They burned metric tons of sage, placed amethyst geodes the size of a human head in every corner. And in the main lobby, she set up an offering table. No food on it, just a crystal decanter of vintage red wine, probably worth thousands, an artisan loaf of bread laced with saffron, and crystal bowls of pink Himalayan salt. She gathered the staff and said, "This is an offering for the spirits of the land. No one is to touch this for any reason. Their energy must be absorbed. I will handle it at 7 a.m. tomorrow." Brenda in the back rolled her eyes. The opening was huge, not with customers, but with the owner's rich friends. For the first 2 weeks, we were packed. Then came the first full moon. Mrs. Harrison said the energy was strongest. She set up the exact same table, again with the expensive wine and bread. That night, the restaurant was dead. The staff gathered at the bar. Brenda leaned on her mop, clicking her tongue. "What a waste," she muttered. "That bottle of wine could pay my monthly bills, and she's letting it sit out for the air to drink. I'm thirsty just looking at it." We laughed. "Maybe we should ask the daughter." "Don't," the manager said. "The daughter's easygoing, but Mrs. Harrison's no joke. She said if anyone touches her offerings, they're fired on the spot." That night, the restaurant closed late. Everyone went home. Only Brenda stayed. The restaurant had a small room on the 3rd floor for her to sleep in, since she had to be there early to clean. The next morning, I arrived at 8 a.m. I opened the door and found Brenda waiting. Her face like thunder. "You kids played dirty," she growled. "What's wrong, Brenda?" I asked. "You all came back last night, didn't you? A little secret party behind my back, huh? I was dying of thirst, and you didn't even invite me. Having fun by yourselves." We were stunned. We all went home. "What party?" "Don't lie to me," Brenda said. "Around 3 a.m. I was sleeping on the 3rd floor and I heard it. Clinking glasses, laughter, people eating like slobs, smacking their lips. It sounded like a feast." She said she was furious. She thought we'd come back to steal the wine and throw a party. "I went out on the 3rd floor balcony," she said. "I looked down into the main hall. The lights were out, but I saw them. 5, 7 shadows, men and women, huddled around the offering table. They were tearing at the bread, passing the wine decanter around, chugging straight from it, eating like they were starved." She stormed downstairs. I went down the stairs, looked through the glass door to the lobby. They were still eating. I ran to the main entrance, but it was locked. I banged on the glass. She reenacted banging on the door, shouting, "Hey, open up! That's not cool! Share a glass with me! I told you I was thirsty!" "But," she said, not a single one of them even looked up. They just kept their heads down, devouring the offering. She stood there, cursing them out for a few more minutes. Then, suddenly, as if on cue, they all stopped. "They stood up," Brenda said, "all at once. Then they turned their backs to me, formed a single file line, one right on the heels of the other. They just walked straight through the plate glass window and vanished onto the street." "I was so mad," she finished. "You pranked me, and you didn't even clean up. I cut her off. "Brenda, you look." I pointed to the offering table. It was completely untouched. The loaf of bread was whole. The wine decanter was still full. Brenda's face went white. "No, that's impossible." I saw them. She was stubborn, muttering that we must have replaced the bottle. But she didn't smile again after that day. The second incident happened a few days later. It was late, around 10:30 p.m. Only one last table of guests in a private room on the 2nd floor. This place had a Japanese-style layout with small private dining rooms. When they paid and left, I, as the server, went up to clear their table. We'll call it Room A. I gathered all the dirty plates and took them to the kitchen. "All clear. Brenda," I said. "Room A is ready. You can go mop the floor." "I know," she grumbled. She wrung out her mop and carried the heavy bucket upstairs. About 2 minutes later, she came back down, empty-handed, her face furious. "Sam, are you trying to get me fired? Are you harassing me?" "What are you talking about, Brenda? That room is full of guests, 4 or 5 people. You sent me in there to clean? You know the rule. No cleaning while guests are present." I was confused. "There's no one up there. They all left." "Don't lie to me. 4 or 5 people are sitting at that table. I walked in, and they all stared at me like I was crazy." I was getting angry. "Brenda, come up here with me." We both went up. We got to Room A. The lights were still on. Her bucket and mop were in the middle of the room. And the room was completely empty. "See, Brenda, who's here?" She was stunned too. "But I just saw them. Just clean it so we can go home." I went back downstairs. About 30 seconds later, I heard her clattering down the stairs again. "Sam, you're messing with me. You're playing games. I just went back. I dipped the mop in the bucket. I was about to start, and those 4 people were staring at me again." This time, Chloe, the cashier, and I both knew something was wrong. "Brenda," Chloe said, "there's no one up there. Let me show you the camera." Chloe turned her monitor around. The security camera for that hallway was pointed right at the room. We rewound it 5 minutes. The footage showed guests in room A pay and leave. Sam, me, enters and clears the table. Sam leaves. A minute later, Brenda arrives with her bucket. She stops at the doorway and stares into room B, the room across the hall, which had been empty since 9 p.m. Then, on camera, we watched Brenda bow as if to say, "My apologies, guests." Then she went downstairs. 2 minutes later, she comes back up. She walks to the door of room A, looks into room B again, and bows again, then flees downstairs. It was obvious she was having a one-woman show. "Brenda, you saw the guests in room B?" I asked. "Yes, 4 or 5 of them." "Brenda," Chloe said, her voice shaking, "the last table was in room A. Room B has been empty since 9 p.m. Look at the camera. There's no one there." Brenda stared at the screen. She said nothing, snatched her mop and stormed back upstairs, muttering, You're using special effects. You hate me." We were starting to get scared, but Brenda wasn't. She just thought we were bullying her. The third incident was a week later. It was very late. Only I, Chloe, and another server named Tyler, who was waiting to drive Chloe home, were left. And Brenda. Brenda was cleaning the large unisex bathroom on the second floor. We were standing at the cashier station on the ground floor, splitting the tips, when we heard Brenda screaming from upstairs. She came thundering down. Which one of you did it?" "Did what, Brenda?" "I was on my hands and knees scrubbing the toilet, and one of you 3 ran up and slapped me on the ass. A hard slap. Are you kidding me? I'm old enough to be your mother." The 3 of us looked at each other. We had been standing there for 15 minutes. "Brenda," Tyler said, "we've been down here the whole time. The bathroom is on the second floor." Who could run that fast? Brenda was confused. "Well, that's weird." She stomped back upstairs. 5 minutes later, we were just putting on our jackets. Brenda ran down again. This time her face was pale. She threw her mop on the floor. "You guys clean it. I'm not doing it. You're playing dirty." "Again? What?" "I just scrubbed that whole floor. It was spotless." I turned around to scrub the toilet, and when I turned back, the entire floor was covered in footprints. Your footprints all over my clean floor. You go clean it up. I was so fed up. "Brenda, let's go." All 4 of us went up, and it was true. The bathroom floor, still damp from the cleaning solution, was covered in footprints. But as we looked closer, I saw it. "Brenda," I said, my voice starting to shake, "you look at these prints." "What about them? They're yours." "Brenda, these are barefoot. We're all wearing sneakers." Brenda was speechless. The prints on the floor were from a bare human foot, wet and caked in mud. Chloe was terrified. I'll clean it." Chloe grabbed the mop and quickly scrubbed the prints away. It's done. Brenda, you should go rest. We're leaving." That night, we ran out of there. The next morning, I was the first to arrive around 8 a.m. I saw Brenda sitting on a bench out front. She was already wearing her coat, her luggage bag at her feet. She saw me and waved. "Sam, you go clock in. I quit." "What? What happened now?" "Kid, this place, it's haunted. It's really, truly haunted." And she told me. She still didn't believe in ghosts. She had stayed the night even though she was terrified. This morning, around 6:30 a.m., she woke up to clean, like always. As she was mopping the second floor lobby, she kept hearing flushing sounds from the bathroom. The sink drain, gurgle, gurgle. The toilet, whoosh. And the automatic men's urinal, the kind with a sensor. All 3 kept flushing, over and over. She figured it was just the building's water pressure in the morning. She went in to clean. It was early, so the only light was the dim glow from the air vent. She had just mopped the floor clean when she heard the toilet flush one last time. Gurgle. She turned. A single, fresh, muddy, barefoot print had just appeared where she'd mopped. She muttered, "My feet must be dirty." She checked her sandals. They were clean. She bent down to wipe the print away. The moment she finished, thud. The entire restaurant's power cut out, pitch black. The only light was the faint gray square from the vent. She was stubborn. "Gotta finish," she told me. I held the mop. I took one step forward and I scrubbed. Immediately, a new wet footprint appeared right in front of my mop. It was like an invisible person was walking backward, and she was following. I kept scrubbing, she said. It took another step. I scrubbed. It took another step. The footprints led her down the bathroom hallway to the very last stall. She looked down at the gap under the stall door. She saw a pair of feet, bare feet, standing there. But the feet were facing inward, like a man standing to use the toilet. She thought it was one of the male staff, me or Tyler, arriving early to prank her. She was annoyed. "Who's in there? Real funny. You just made me clean this whole floor again." No answer. She got angry. "You kids are so disrespectful." She took her mop handle and jabbed it hard under the door, hitting the person's leg. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" She said she made contact. It felt like poking cold meat. And then she watched as the pair of feet slowly rose up onto their tiptoes. Then they slowly lifted up off the ground, levitating. She was scared, but she still thought we were pranking her, maybe climbing the stall wall. "You're acting like children." She looked up over the top of the stall door to tell them off, and she saw it. Resting on the edge of the door was a head, a human head. But while the feet were facing in, the head was facing out. It was looking right at her. The neck was twisted 180 degrees. It was an old man, wrinkled, bald, with waxy skin, and he was grinning at her. Brenda said she doesn't remember screaming. She just remembers dropping the mop, running for her life out of the building, packing her bags, and sitting on that bench for an hour, waiting for me to arrive. She went back home immediately, didn't even ask for her last paycheck. When I heard her story, I didn't go inside either. I called Chloe and Tyler. That day, all three of us quit. The restaurant, despite Mrs. Harrison's money, failed spectacularly within 2 years. Her daughter got bored and abandoned it. Later, I found out the real reason the bank left. They never mentioned ghosts. They filed a report with the city's Department of Building and Safety, claiming the building had severe and irreparable plumbing issues. The bank employees had complained that all the toilets in the building would flush automatically at the same time all night long. My father's ghost in quarantine. This story comes from Felix. He calls it a cruel twist of fate. His family was intact, at least until about 7 years ago, right before the pandemic. His father, David, had an affair. His mother found out. They were older, and Felix himself was already 17 or 18. His mother said, "We're too old for this. I'm too tired to drag us through court. We don't even have much to fight over." So they didn't get a legal divorce. They just stopped. David was deeply remorseful, but my mother was too wounded. She couldn't forgive the humiliation. So my father left. He moved from their home in Pennsylvania to New York City for work. He joined a construction union, working on high-rises. At first, he'd come home to visit, trying to patch things up. But eventually, they both realized they didn't need each other that badly anymore. Their relationship settled into a new normal. Dad working far away, Mom at home. To an outsider, they just looked like a regular family. But Felix knew his mother was still furious. "If he'd done this when he was young, maybe," she'd say. "But to do this when you're old, it's just shameful." His father worked himself to the bone in New York. He drank too little water, held it in for hours on the job site, showered late at night. A lifestyle that destroys your health. One day, he video called home. He looked strange. "Look at this," he told Felix's mother. "I'm swollen." He held up his arm. It was puffy. He pressed a finger into the skin, and the dent just stayed there. "I don't know what's wrong. I'm tired. The site hasn't paid me yet. Can you lend me some money for a doctor?" His mother, despite her anger, sent the money. A few days later, Felix called him. His father was in a hospital gown. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Don't tell your mother," his dad whispered. "It's my kidneys. It's bad." The doctor said, "It's expensive to live. I think I'll just let it go. Felix and his mother immediately drove to New York. They ended up at a large, aging public hospital in the Bronx. The doctor said the prognosis was bad. He was older, his body was weak, and the treatment would be hard. If he was lucky, it would mean dialysis for the rest of his life. His mother was determined to save him. But Felix had his final exams, so he had to return to Pennsylvania, leaving his mother alone at the hospital. That's when his mother saw the first things. The next morning, his father woke up, grimacing. "Why did you keep squeezing my leg all night?" he asked. "I'm swollen. It hurts when you press." His mother was stunned. "What are you talking about? The doctor told me not to press hard. It could rupture a vessel. I didn't touch you." "Then look," his father pointed. She looked at his calf. There were 5 deep indentations, exactly like fingertips, pressed into the swollen flesh, and they weren't bouncing back. "Who did this to you?" "You did. Last night I saw a woman standing at the foot of my bed, squeezing my leg. I thought it was you." His mother was terrified. She ran to get a nurse, but by the time they returned, the 5 dents had vanished. The next night, his mother was exhausted, dozing in the visitor's chair. Suddenly, the metal IV pole crashed over, striking her on the head. She jolted awake. The pole was heavy, stable. It couldn't have just fallen. She scrambled to set it right. When she turned back, she saw her husband, eyes wide with terror, foam at his lips. He couldn't speak, but his hand was raised, pointing. She thought he was pointing at her. "What is it? What's wrong?" But she realized he was pointing behind her. In that instant, she didn't dare turn around. She lunged for him. "David! David!" The moment she touched him, his whole body shuddered violently. He let out a huge gasp. That horrible, that bitch. "Who are you talking about?" "That woman! She came back. She was squeezing my legs. I told her to stop, that my wife gets jealous. So she moved up. She squeezed my thighs, my stomach. Then she shoved her hand into my chest like she was clawing me. It hurt so much. I kept calling you, but you wouldn't wake up. I had to reach out and pull the pole down on you." He was gasping for air. "The second you sat up, she retreated, stood right behind you, and smiled at me." His mother, though she believed in spirits, just assumed he was delirious from the illness. "David, this hospital is packed with people. There are no ghosts here. You're just tired." She went to fix his blanket, and she saw them, the indentations, fresh ones, on his thighs, on his stomach, as if someone had pressed their fingers into wet clay. Now, she was truly terrified. 2 days later, her husband was moved to the ICU. 3 days after that, the doctor said he wasn't going to make it. His mother had him cremated, kept the ashes, and brought him home to Pennsylvania. Almost a year passed. Felix graduated high school. He had to go to New York alone to file his college application papers. His mother refused to go. "The only time I ever set foot in New York," she said, "was to go to that hospital and bring your father's ashes home. I'm not going back." Felix went, crashing on friends' couches. He was scrambling to get his paperwork sorted. When COVID-19 hit, New York City locked down. He was trapped. He couldn't get back to Pennsylvania. He had no money for a real apartment. He bounced from place to place. And then he got sick. With no papers and no New York address, he was processed as homeless. They put him in an ambulance and took him to a field hospital. He had no idea. It was that same public hospital in the Bronx, the very place his father had died. He was brought in through a rear entrance, through testing tents. He never even saw the building's name. Life in the quarantine ward was awful. The hospital food was never enough. Some people, greedy, would take 2 or 3 trays. Others had family in New York dropping off care packages. Felix was alone. He was often hungry. In his ward, there was a woman named Maria. She lived nearby, got sick, and was now running a black market. Her family would pass her supplies through the fence. She resold everything, chips, sodas, instant noodles, at insane markups. Felix had no money. He could only watch, his stomach cramping. One day, Maria was hauling in a new stash. A package of Oreo cookies fell out. She didn't see it and stepped right on it. Crunch. The package was ruined. Felix, desperate, walked over. Ms. Maria, that one's crushed. Are you going to throw it away? If you are, could I have it? Maria gave him a nasty look. Have it? You think this is a charity? It's a pandemic, kid. Nothing is free. This pack is $1. Since it's crushed, I'll sell it to you for 50 cents. You got money? No, I don't. Then get lost. She picked up the crushed Oreos, walked to the trash can, but she didn't just toss it. She was afraid Felix would fish it out. She ripped the package open, ground the cookies into dust with her hands, and dumped the crumbs. No money, no food. Felix went to his cot and cried from the humiliation. The next morning, Felix was trying to sleep off the hunger when Maria shook him. Hey kid, eat. She shoved a hot cup of ramen into his hands. Felix was stunned. I don't have any money. It's paid for, she snapped. Your old man just paid for it. My, old man? Yeah. That guy who was just standing there paid me. Why are you two in here separately anyway? Felix was too happy to question it. He ran, got hot water, and devoured the noodles. When he came back, Maria was sitting on her cot cursing a blue streak. Son of a bitch, who tricked me? Fucking asshole! What's wrong, Miss Maria? Look, she held up a $20 bill. It looked fake, strange. It looked like hell money. I was selling, it was crowded. Someone must have slipped this to me. If I find out who... She raged about that $20 for an hour. The very next morning, Maria shook him again. This time, it was a Twinkie. Here, your old man just bought it. Eat. This time, Felix froze. Ma'am, are you sure? I can't take it. He just gave me the money. What is your problem? Ma'am, Felix said, his voice trembling. My dad, he's dead. He died of kidney failure 8 months ago. Maria's eyes went wide. What are you talking about? He was just standing there talking to me. I even told him he looks just like you. 2 peas in a pod. He gave me the money, told me to give the pastry to my son. Ma'am, I'm from Pennsylvania. I have no family in New York. Maria was scratching her head. Whatever, it's paid for. Eat it. Felix ate the Twinkie, terrified. He wasn't even finished before he heard Maria start screaming again. This time, she'd been slipped 2 hell money bills, a 10 and a 20. That's when Felix knew. He borrowed a phone and called his mother. Mom, what hospital did Dad die in? That big public one in the Bronx, honey. He asked around. He realized the truth. This was the place. He went to his cot, pulled the blanket over his head, and just cried. He cried out of guilt. He had hated his father for the affair. He thought his father had abandoned him, and now his father was dead, still trapped in this hospital, using hell money to buy him food. After that day, his father didn't appear again. A few days later, Felix tested negative. He was moved to the discharge ward. That night, he wandered the dark hospital grounds. He clasped his hands and prayed. Dad, if you're still here, I'm not angry anymore. Thank you for the food. Please, help me get home to Pennsylvania. I don't have $1. I have no way to get back. I need to get home for your memorial. The next morning, a medical staffer made an announcement. Listen up, there's a charity bus leaving tonight for Pennsylvania. It'll be stopping in Harrisburg and Allentown. Anyone with a negative test certificate can sign up. It's free. Felix burst into tears. At that time, getting out of New York was impossible. A free ride home was a miracle. He ran to the hospital's small chapel, found a candle, and lit it under a tree, thanking his father. That night, the bus arrived. As Felix was lining up, a security guard stopped him. Hey, you Felix? Yeah, that's me. What's the deal, kid? Your old man is here to pick you up, but you're on the bus list. You're taking someone's spot. Sir, no one is here for me. Yeah, he was. Came by around 7 p.m., knew your full name. I told him the bus was leaving and to wait for you at the gate. Where'd he go? Felix was shaking. Sir, my dad is dead. He died in this hospital 8 months ago. The guard's face went pale. God, is that right? No wonder. He looks so sad. But man, you two look identical. Go on, kid. Get on the bus. Felix got on and sat by the window. The bus engine started. He looked back at the grim hospital building, a horrifying memory. And as the bus began to move, he saw him, his dad. He was standing just inside the hospital fence. He couldn't leave. He was jogging alongside the bus on the other side of the fence. He was waving. His face was sad, but he was nodding. He just kept nodding, and waving, nodding, and waving. Felix watched him. His father kept pace for about 3 or 4 seconds. Then the bus turned the corner, and Felix lost sight of him. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed for the rest of the ride. Later, Felix and his mother returned to New York. They held a small service, prayed for his father to come home. Felix is graduated now. But he never went back to New York City. For him, New York is the place where he finally understood his father's love, and the place where his father is trapped forever. Counting all 46. I was born and raised in a small town in West Virginia, right on the banks of the Ohio River. My family's house is a short drive from where the old Silver Bridge used to stand, the one that collapsed in that terrible tragedy decades ago. I was just a kid when it happened, but you don't forget something like that. The collapse didn't take the whole thing, just the span on our side of the river, the side our town was on. The scene was just chaos and heartbreak. Years later, after my husband Mike and I got married, he moved into that same old family home with me. Mike's a good man, a typical guy from around here. He works his tail off at the plant during the day, and he's a loving husband and father when he comes home. But every now and then, he'd have a night out with his buddies to blow off some steam with a few beers. And every single time, the only way back home was the road that runs along the river, right past the site of the old bridge collapse. There's a small memorial and an old church down there now. The locals always said that the spirits of those who died in the collapse still linger around that church. This one fateful night was Halloween. Here in the States, Halloween is the one night of the year when the veil between our world and the spirit world is said to be at its thinnest. That morning, I'd warned Mike, "Honey, it's Halloween. Please don't get wasted and come home late by yourself. It's not a good night to be out on the roads alone." He just laughed. "You worry too much, Jess. It's Halloween. You're supposed to party. My buddies are throwing a huge bash. Free food, free booze, all the good stuff, not just cheap beer. I'd be crazy to miss it." I couldn't argue with him. So Mike went to his Halloween party. Normally, when my husband goes out drinking, I never go looking for him. My philosophy is, he's a grown man. He can find his own way home. If he can't, a night sleeping on a friend's couch might teach him a lesson. But this night was different. Usually, no matter how drunk he was, Mike would manage to drag himself home by 11 p.m. On this Halloween night, midnight came and went, then 12:30 a.m. and still no sign of him. Just then, my brother David got home from his late shift at the factory. "Jess, is Mike home yet?" he asked. I was annoyed. "Forget him, David. I told him not to overdo it. He's probably passed out at his friend's place." David looked worried. "Maybe I should swing by the place they usually hang out. It's on my way to pick up my wife anyway. It's not a good night for him to be sleeping it off somewhere random. You know, Halloween. All the ghouls and ghosts are out. You can't be too careful." I snapped back, half joking, half furious. "Whatever. Let the ghosts get him for all I care. I'm sick of it." Still, David decided to go. About 20 minutes later, His car came peeling back into our driveway. He and his wife burst through the door, their faces pale with panic. "Jess! Dad! Mom! Get in the car now! Something's wrong with Mike. My God, I don't know what's happening. It's like he's possessed." My tough girl act vanished in a heartbeat. Hearing the real fear in my brother's voice made my blood run cold. "What is it, David? Was he in an accident?" "No, just get in the car. You have to see this for yourselves." We all piled into the car. The drive to the riverbank under the bridge is only about a mile. From a distance, we could already see him. Mike was squatting right at the water's edge, his chin resting in his hands, his eyes glued to the new bridge, his mouth hanging open like a child watching a magic show. I ran over to him, the reek of alcohol hitting me like a wall. "Mike, you're completely wasted. Let's go home. Why didn't you answer David's calls?" He waved me away, his eyes never leaving the bridge. "Shh. Be quiet, Jess. I'm watching something amazing. Look, they're working on the bridge, the way they swing on those ropes. It's incredible. Let me watch for just a little while longer." Our whole family just stared at each other in confusion. My mom said, bewildered, "My God, son. It's almost 1 a.m. Who would be working now? Besides, this bridge was finished over a decade ago." All 5 of us looked up. On the bridge, there was nothing but the occasional car passing silently. Under the bridge where we were, it was pitch black, utterly devoid of life. My mom approached him and gently shook his shoulder. "Mike, what's wrong with you? There's no one there. It's me, your mother-in-law. Are you so drunk you don't even recognize me?" "Let's go home." Mike got irritated. "Mom, just sit down and watch with me. It's so cool. The workers are right there. They're swinging on ropes, welding things, talking and laughing. It's a whole crew." We looked at each other, a creeping, bone-deep dread beginning to settle over us. My dad, losing his patience, barked at my brother. David grabbed his other arm. "We're dragging him home." My dad and brother hooked their arms under Mike's and tried to pull him up, but he fought back with surprising strength. "No, I'm not leaving. The workers told me they only come back here to build the bridge once a year. They said I should stay and watch, that they'll be gone by sunrise. It's amazing. You guys go home. I just want to watch a little longer. It's only 1 night a year." Hearing him say "once a year" on Halloween night sent a shiver down my spine. We were standing right next to the old church and the memorial. The cold air rising from the river felt like a dead man's breath. We all knew without saying a word that he was seeing the ghosts of the workers who died in the collapse. No more words were needed. We all grabbed a piece of him and, despite his struggles, hauled him away from that spot. The strangest part was, as soon as we had dragged him about 50 feet from the riverbank, he suddenly went limp and stood up straight, completely lucid. All right, I can walk myself," he said calmly. "What's everyone so worked up about?" Back home, Mike acted as if nothing had happened. He washed his face, said he was hungry, and started looking for leftovers. We all just sat and stared at him, our own fear keeping us awake. Finally, his father-in-law asked, "Mike, do you remember anything? What were you doing down at the river?" "What river, Dad? I remember leaving the party and walking straight home. I guess I fell asleep. I just woke up feeling hungry." We stared at him, a mix of anger and sheer terror churning in our stomachs. We began to tell him everything that had just happened. As David described finding him squatting alone, and as I repeated what he'd said about watching the workers, Mike suddenly froze. The fork dropped from his hand and clattered onto his plate. The fog in his memory began to clear. He started trembling. I remember now, he stammered. At the party, I drank some of that homemade moonshine. It hit me hard. On the way home, my head was spinning. As I was passing the river, I heard this incredible noise. It was deafening, like a massive construction site. The sound of hammers, drills, metal grinding against metal. I looked over and, my God, there were dozens of men working on the bridge, men on ropes, men on the steel beams. There were cranes, barges on the river. It was so loud and busy. Then, a man standing on a barge down on the water looked up at me. He shouted, "Hey, buddy, stick around and watch. We only get to come back and build for one night a year. It's a real sight to see. We'll be gone by dawn." After he said that, it was like my mind went fuzzy. I wasn't myself anymore. I just sat down and watched them. We did the math. David found him at 12:30 a.m. Mike had been sitting there, watching a crew of ghosts rebuild the bridge for nearly 3 hours. He had stumbled into another realm, watching a hyper-realistic 3D movie being performed by the restless dead. After that night, Mike got sick. He had a raging fever for days, couldn't even sit up in bed. We were terrified and went to the old church to speak with the priest. The priest told us the spirits meant no harm, but because they died so tragically, their energy was incredibly strong. On Halloween night, they were simply replaying the last moments of their work, the last moments of their lives. On the priest's advice, we went to the Silver Bridge Memorial. Etched on the plaque were the names of all 46 victims. We bought 46 bouquets of flowers, one for each name. We lit 46 candles and stood there praying for each soul to finally find peace. My parents and I just clasped our hands and begged, "Please rest in peace. Please don't haunt my husband, our son-in-law, anymore." After that, Mike slowly got better. He quit drinking for 6 whole months. He drinks a little now, but he has never, ever come home after 8 p.m. since that night. If he's ever out late, even just past 9, he'll call me. "Jess, I'm so sorry. My buddy's birthday ran late. I'm not going to make it. I'm sleeping on his couch. I'll see you in the morning." That fear, that absolute certainty that something is waiting for him on that dark road by the river, has stayed with him to this very day.